And let everyone in.
Okay, you ready?
Jeff, are we all set here?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Chairperson, I think we are all
Good to go.
set.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 19th, 2022 meeting of the Town of Brighton Planning Board. Tonight, due to public gathering restrictions because of COVID-19 and the adoption of Chapter 417 of the laws of 2021, this planning board meeting is being conducted remotely, beginning now. Members of the public will be able to view the meeting via Zoom, which you are doing now. Just so you know that written comments on the public hearings that are presented tonight may be submitted to Ramsey Boehner, who is the Executive Secretary of the Planning Board at Brighton Town Hall, 2300 Elmwood Avenue, by email or standard mail. Tonight's meeting agenda does include 2 public hearings, and I would like to begin by asking the secretary to please call the roll.
Number 4. Number 4,
Oh, here, I thought you said 4.
Wasowski,
Here.
Babcock, Steiner,
Here.
Delaney,
Here.
Bader,
Here.
Price,
Here,
Altman,
Here.
all present.
thank you. At this time, the board and town staff are going to have an agenda review about the meeting tonight. This will be followed by our approval of meeting minutes and then the public hearings. So Ramsey, what have we, let's discuss what we do and don't have on the agenda tonight.
Okay, the first thing that I did want to say is that we did receive additional communications. Jeff, those communications are
We got a letter from Jess Udall from Passero requesting postponement of application 12P0221 to the February meeting. We got a letter from Evan Gaffal from Costas Engineering requesting adjournment of application 10P NB221 to the February 16th, 2020 meeting. We got a letter from the Fire Marshal, Chris Roth, regarding the Starbucks that's going in at 1925 South Clinton.
did we get any other adjournment letters?
Nope.
The other thing on the agenda, I would like to also point out is that application 10P NB2 21, the application of James Tabby for preliminary site plan approval has also been adjourned and will not be heard this evening. The application 12P02 21 FSI Construction is also adjourned, leaving us with the 2 public hearings and the 1 concept review. The first application is for a conditional use permit. That is application 1P0122 Ahead Energy. And it's a conditional use to allow a research and development facility for new component polyfibers films for use with hydrogen fuel cells and water electrolysis, and a property located at 285 Metro Park. Probably the biggest concerns that we have here is obviously the safety, what materials are going to be on the property, and are they meeting all the necessarily requirements that they will need to meet to have that type of facility. The next application is the University of Rochester. They have resubmitted more information to us that we requested. We are in the process of getting lead agency status and doing a coordinated review. They did resubmit some additional information. There is a conservation easement shown along the southern portion of the property, south of the LEE building. I don't know if you guys have any questions about either of those applications.
I just need to learn a little bit more about the conditional use permit and the processes. I don't have a lot of questions about the U of R at this point. Anybody else have?
Any questions of staff?
I don't have any questions about those two either.
I might have one question on the U of R. I'm trying to bring up their map. I guess the question is the vernal pool and the proposed wetlands that are right below them, or just south of them, I guess is the correct word.
Yeah.
Will that be under any protection now, or is that just, we're not going to worry about that because we got the conservation easement?
That is something that we're going to have to discuss during the meeting, and it's a question that needs to be asked. And I would suggest that it would be asked by you, David, or someone.
Okay.
Right now, I'm not seeing it that it is protected, only the southern portion. They did offer some mitigation to it.
Well, I'm just curious because I mean, the proposed wetlands they put in, it'd be kind of a waste of money to put them in if they're just going to go into that area. But
You mean
just curious about that.
Yeah, those are things that can be discussed during the hearing.
all right.
Any more questions about the applications or the agenda?
This is John. I have a question about the agenda. So the quickly dropped off, is that they?
It's
being
adjourned.
postponed?
They are working on preparing an incentive zoning application, John, for the
Thank you.
town board. They
Okay.
did go to Public Works Committee. And now we're working on their application.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Jason or Julie, anybody have any other questions?
No,
You're all set?
I'm sorry.
I had a question about the additional correspondence on the conceptual site plan review. Did we get that from the fire
Yeah.
marshal?
Yes, it would have been emailed to you this morning, this afternoon, I believe.
Okay,
An email from Rick DiStefano, Pam.
I don't think I saw it either. I don't think so either. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I can. Do we want to do that now or forward it now or not? Worry about it.
That's part of the concept review. Why don't we bring
Okay.
that?
Yeah, if you could email it off to everyone, Jeff.
thanks.
Yeah. All right. No further questions regarding the agenda for staff. All right. Next on the agenda, before we hear our hearings, is approval of the October 20th, 2021 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
This is John. I'll move that we approve the October meeting minutes.
Thank you, John.
I'll second, Pam.
Laney,
All right. Should we do them all at once or?
do it one by one if we could.
Listen, all right, okay, so moved and seconded for the October 20th meeting minutes. Ramsey, please call the roll.
Member Altman,
I was absent at that meeting.
you're abstaining.
Yes,
Member Price,
Aye.
Fader,
David? David Fader. He's-
He says aye.
Yes, I don't,
He's not muted on our end.
He said aye.
aye for David.
Yeah.
Babcock Steiner,
He said aye too.
Yeah, aye.
Osowski,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
approved.
What
I
about,
wasn't called.
Delaney,
Aye.
I guess I wasn't hearing my eyes, okay. Minutes are approved.
thank you. All right, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from our November 17th, 2021 meeting?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
I'll move we approve the November minutes. Sorry.
I'll second it, Julie. Ford.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Babcock Steiner,
Aye.
Osowski,
Aye.
Vader,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Altman,
Aye.
Delaney,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
approved.
Aye. Okay.
All right, and our December 15th meeting minutes will be reviewed at our next, at our February meeting. Before we start the hearings, I need to ask Ramsey if the public hearings for tonight were properly advertised.
Yes, they were properly advertised in the Daily Record of January 13th, 2022.
Thank you. So as a reminder to everybody out there, the application 12P0221 FSI Construction for 3300 Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road has been postponed to February 16th. Makes our first application up tonight 1P0122. It's application of Ahead Energy and Ionomer Innovations, Inc., lessee for conditional use approval to allow for a research and development facility as a new component polymer film for use with hydrogen fuel cells and water electrolysis on the property at 285 Metro Park. Do we have some folks from Ahead Energy here?
Yes, I'm James Grieve here. I'm the chairman of Ahead Energy. And I should take just 1 or 2 minutes to explain who we are and what the building is, and then I'll pass over to Rutger Putz, Dr. Rutger Putz, who's the site manager from Ionomer.
Thank you.
So as you understand, Ahead Energy is the owner of the building. It's a long-established not-for-profit, originally formed at the University of Rochester. This building is a startup New York site affiliated with Alfred University, which is a unique Western New York university in terms of fuel cell research. Formerly, this building was used by General Motors and then more recently by Delphi Automotive. So it has some unique infrastructure for safe R&D related to fuel cells. So I'll pass over to Rutger now.
Yeah, thank you, James. So my name is Rutger Putz. As James said, I'm going to be responsible for the new facility. With me is Rob Hudson from IBC Engineering. And maybe later on, one of our other colleagues from Vancouver is joining us. So I'll just start really quickly with a brief introduction. So Ionomer Innovations is a startup company in Vancouver, and we're looking to establish a first base in the US. We are a clean energy company, so what we're trying to do is we're making an absolutely critical component that our customers can use to make fuel cells and electrolyzers, and it's all about making the hydrogen economy commercially and environmentally attractive. And our customers would be, actually two local examples would be Plug Power and Hyzon. So we're a component manufacturer, hopefully, and we supply to these bigger companies to make their products more efficient, lower cost, etc. It's a young company, we're just started, but what we need in the US is a lab where we're going to test our product. It's manufactured elsewhere. We're going to test it in this lab and generate data to help our customers. And this, as James said, this 285 Metro Park really is a unique facility. It's hydrogen safe, built to General Motors standards, and they over-engineered. Not surprisingly, maybe, but and it's definitely over-engineered for what we're going to do. So what we're looking at here is a project to recommission the facilities. We're not going to change the footprint either internally to the building or externally. We're well within the use of what the building was designed for, and what previously was allowed to operate, what it was allowed to operate for. So I think for sure what we're going to do is we're going to meet all the performance requirements. I've worked with Ramsey and with Rick DiStefano to clarify that. We have, of course, some issues are really no big concerns, but the key concerns for us, of course, are safety, because hydrogen is a flammable and explosive gas, and air emissions. So maybe the air emissions is the simplest one. We are going to apply, or we need to apply for a New York State air facilities permit. So the lead agency for that will be the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. And via Rob at IBC Engineering, we will engage a consultant to help us apply for that and make sure that we meet all the criteria. Hydrogen safety is of course extremely important. It's important for employees, our co-workers in the building, and everyone around us. I think we have it under control. We have a lot of experience. We bring in a lot of experience with IBC Engineering, who is familiar with not just laboratory facilities at a pretty big scale, but also hydrogen safety. And then again, using this infrastructure that we have in place, I think we can address any of the safety concerns. So we're really excited actually to join this building, to work in this town, to join Ahead Energy, because their mission of research, sustainable energy research, and our mission fit great. We've also gotten nice support from the state of New York. And actually the Rochester area actually has some labor resources that have experience that fit very well with what we need to do. So I think what it's kind of the best of both worlds. We can work on our clean energy mission and create jobs at the same time. So it's an exciting time to work on this area. So with that, let me open it for questions.
Thank you, Rector. Rector, could I ask you or maybe Rob to just explain a little further to us if you are talking about safety concerns and air quality. Tell us just a little bit about the materials and where those are stored. Where is the hydrogen stored, and what are the potential risks?
Okay.
With those, and please go back to the just briefly, because I didn't get all of the environmental review or application process you have with DEC, and what that particular application was, and necessarily why what is it that's being emitted or released that requires that permit.
Okay, so let me start with the hydrogen storage. So the hydrogen storage is managed by Air Products. The facility is still there, so it's their facility also, their equipment. It looks like some of the gas tube trailers that you see sometimes on the road. It can store about 100,000 square feet of gas. That sounds like a lot, but it's relatively small compared to a lot of facilities. And again, I've been in contact with Air Products. They're going to inspect this facility and make sure it's still meeting all the criteria, safety criteria. And so that's where the bulk of the hydrogen is. So what are the hazards with hydrogen? So hydrogen is a flammable gas. It's a little more explosive and a little more flammable than natural gas. What makes it unique is that if there is a hydrogen fire, the flame is colorless. And you can't see it. So you need some special detection methods, and also, sorry, you cannot smell hydrogen. It's odorless. And so for that, what we do in this building is, first of all, it starts with making sure that everything is leak tight, make sure that you can test it ahead of time that it doesn't escape. But if it escapes, we have things like hydrogen sensors to sense this before it hits explosive limits. Let me think. I'm not sure that I addressed all of the fire safety. I'll come back to the environmental maybe separately. Rob, anything else on fire safety?
Fire and chemical safety, I can just expand upon what you've already started. As you said, there's sensors in each facility or each lab where the tripping of the sensor will open up a fan and a damper. We will not be releasing a plume of hydrogen. It will be mixed and diluted substantially below any environmental risks. This is all in conformance with the various NFPA documents. I can rattle them off, but I don't want to bore everybody with much numbers.
Education, just remind us, NFPA.
NFPA, National Protection Agency. And we'll be following, there's several standards dedicated to hydrogen, the storage of hydrogen, gas cylinders that are under pressure, and all of the piping and equipment serving that system. As Rutger said, IBC has quite a bit of experience in this. We also were the original designers when GM moved in the 1996. Not me specifically, I was much too young for that, but other folks that still are employed at IBC were a part of that and have been instrumental in bringing the system back online.
Okay. And
Ramsey,
so,
you're muted.
Am I mute?
Oh, I was just saying, you made me feel old. I was here in 96, so.
Then
so
a little
yeah,
on
go ahead.
the air quality, please.
Yeah. So any emissions that we have, so it's hydrogen. It's at full capacity. If we have lots of test stations, it could be up to 1.4 cubic feet a minute. Again, it's odorless. It's non-toxic. It will be greatly diluted, so it will never hit any explosive limits. And actually, I don't have the number, but the dilution factor will be very high.
It also goes straight up. I mean, the vertical velocity is 70 meters per second, so
right.
That's incredibly fast. It goes straight up.
Yep.
Wait, who's that?
That's,
I'm sorry, who was speaking?
Yeah, that's Benjamin Britton. He is our founder and chief strategy officer. So he joined from Vancouver.
Holly, let us know if you're having problems with the names, please. Okay, continue. Sorry.
Yep. So we looked at the criteria for air permits. There's several levels of criteria, and even though we're a small lab, we just hit that limit for an air facilities permit, which is the lowest level air permit that that one can get. And so that's why we're applying for that, because we must. Anything else on that, Rob?
No, I think you summarized it very well.
This is Town Attorney Ken Gordon. I have a question about the air discharge or the hydrogen discharge. What, if any, adverse impacts would there be on adjoining properties?
So none.
There is none. Hydrogen's already in our air. So we're
Rob
just-
Hudson.
Sorry. Hydrogen's already in our air. We breathe it in all the time. And we're diluting it so that there isn't any flammable quantities readily available to have any negative effects in terms of explosions or fires. So there will be little to zero impact on any adjoining properties.
Oh, no, zero. And as we just,
Ken, do you have a follow-on question? Are you?
Nope, just wanted to make sure we had that information on the record. I think it's part of the necessary determination that we make that it does not have an adverse impact on adjoining properties. Otherwise, it may fall into what would be a prohibited use in the district.
Right.
And the owners of the property, this equipment that is owned by Air Products, that how long has that equipment been on this property?
As was mentioned, since the time that General Motors and then Delphi have occupied the site.
And your name is, I'm sorry, if you could.
Yes, James Grieve. I'm the chairman of Ahead Energy.
James Grave.
And James, how please remind us how long ago Delphi and GM were here?
Yeah, 1996 was when GM occupied the building, and Delphi was there from 2003 to 2016. So relatively recently it was used by Delphi.
Great. So this equipment has been here. We've had no incidents with any of the previous occupants of the building.
To the best of my knowledge.
Very good.
Are there any other hazardous materials that are going to be stored on the property?
so we're going to have some small amounts of solvent for cleaning, so organic solvent. Let's see. The quantity is about
And you said it's not very much?
no, so we're talking about several gallons, maybe like 10 gallons maximum. We have the facility actually has a special chemical storage shed out back, so that's where we would store it, so it's safe. And yeah, so it's for cleaning. And then the other thing we're doing is, as part of our research, we have to print on our product, and that's a solvent-based printing system. So,
Jeff, do you have any questions?
Yeah, the floor plan showed something called Micro Era. What are they and what do they do?
James? Yeah. Okay.
Well, yes, so Ahead Energy, as I mentioned, is a startup New York facility, and MicroEra is really gearing up to do a project there with a NYSERDA grant. So it's a small startup company that is operating under the Startup New York with Ahead and Alfred University.
What do they do? What kind of?
Also a clean tech company doing thermal energy storage.
Will there be any manufacturing on site for either?
No,
Ionomer? Okay.
just R&D.
And will anything be stored outside?
No.
As Rutger said, there are storage sheds which are ventilated and monitored, so they're outside of the building envelope, but they're not fully outside.
Okay.
The building does have multiple tenants. You're just looking for the conditional use for Rutgers firm.
Correct.
All right. Other questions from other board members?
Yeah, this is John. I have a question. In part of the information that we received, there was mention of a blowout panel on one of the walls of the building. And I'm just curious to know if that blowout panel is restrained somehow, either on hinges or chains or cables, straps, so that if it does blow out, it doesn't go flying through the air somewhere and potentially cause some damage or injury.
I don't have that detail here. Rob?
Yeah, I don't recall seeing any chains. We'll have to look at that. I don't think it's a requirement on the NFPA, but if that's a town board requirement, we can definitely look into that and make sure it's implemented.
All right, thank you.
Other board members? You can't see everybody all at once. So,
No.
okay.
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
All right. And David, I think I heard from Julie.
No.
and
Yeah, I'm all set.
All set. All right. Karen Altman, you all set?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Ken or Ramsey, any other questions from you?
I do not have any, thank you.
All right. Folks, this is a public hearing, and I would like to open the floor to anyone that cares to address this application. Is there, if you're joining us via Zoom, there is a raise hand question or a raise hand function. Other formats, I'm not entirely sure the way to do it. In worst case, just start waving your arms around and we'll get to you. Brendan, do you see anybody?
Nope.
I'm not seeing anyone either. Jeff?
No, I don't see anybody.
All right. Okay, everybody from ahead and Ionomer, thank you. We're going to proceed to our next application. Let me see if I can find the right agenda. So in application 10P NB 121, this is 1950 Monroe Avenue, has been adjourned to by the applicant, and same with application 10P NB 221 James Tabby on Highland Avenue. That's been adjourned to our February meeting. Our next application tonight is 12P NB 121, the application of the University of Rochester for preliminary site plan approval, preliminary EPOD permit approval, and preliminary conditional use permit for 61,000 square foot facility at the Laboratory for Laser Energetics on 250 East River Road. U of R folks, good evening.
Good evening. This is David Cox with Pastoral Associates. Clayton with U of R would like to give some opening remarks. If he could.
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you, David. Good evening, members of the board. I'll be brief, but it's certainly great to see you again. Happy belated New Year. I think we can still say that 19 days in. But again, my name is Clayton Jones, Director of Local Government and Community Relations here at the university. I just want to take a moment before we begin the presentation to, thank you for your time, your effort, and your continued partnership. As this is the first time we've been before you in this new year, we're reminded, really that this project continues to represent a true partnership between the university and the town. And we want to again reiterate that your feedback, your efforts really make this project better, not only for the community, but also for the university. So as I continue to say, the university is proud and considers itself fortunate that the Laser Lab is located here in Brighton and a part of this specific community. With us again tonight are our partners from Passero and Canada Design, as well as Nixon Peabody and leadership from university facilities. And as always, we look forward to the continued engagement and we're really appreciative of the time on tonight's agenda. So with that, thank you again, and I'll turn it back over to David, who will present our plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Clayton. So just to give everyone just kind of a rundown of the materials that we did submit. We submitted 15 letters of intent. We submitted 15 revised site plans, 15 response letters to town comments, 15 sustainability letters, 15 letters from RTS, 15 waste management plans, 15 generator details, 15 IPD 2021 master plan, 15 Lle Development Plan, 3 engineers reports, 3 SWIPs, and 3 geotech reports. So a lot of information there. What I wanted to go through first, Jeff, was if you could just pull up that sustainability letter. I just wanted to briefly hit on some of the things of that. Should be number 3. Yep.
That's in the big packet.
Perfect. So just wanted to, this is from the IPD. It has different sustainability goals and initiatives and sections. So I just wanted to briefly kind of go through that. So the first section is nature. So we are condensing, our proposed overall development area, proposed from what was previously done. So we're compacting the development and opening up 3.57 more acres of green space. We are doing wildflower no-mow areas. We're providing conservation easements. There's a lot of daylight around the building so that most people's workspaces have natural daylight out into nature. We're using native plantings, and we're doing wetland enhancement. So a lot of good stuff there to really benefit and help nature. The next is energy. So the building does have some vertical shading fins, which limit solar gain. And the building has also been designed to have 11% energy reduction from ASHRAE 90.1 baseline. So that's all good there. The next one is people. We're providing bike racks, EV charging stations, all different types of alternative means of transportation, so that really people can have multiple different ways to really help them in their decisions and benefit the environment. The next is on water. We obviously have designed the site to meet all stormwater regulations. We have multiple bioretention areas to treat roof runoff and pavement areas. And there's also no permanent irrigation system. So that is also a big savings on water there. And then on materials, we've gone through a whole building life cycle assessments. We're using FSC certified wood, regionally sourced materials where we can, all those things with materials that are good for the environment there. So just wanted to highlight that letter, and there's additional information in there. I just kind of hit the highlights with that. Jeff, the next one I just wanted to bring up was the RTS letter. Should be number 5. So this is just the letter we received back from RTS when we reached out to them about the reinstating the bus service. And they had some data from pre-COVID, during COVID, and kind of up till recently, that the ridership for that bus stop was just very, very, very low, approximately an average of 2 people a day, 1 to 2 people a day, which is just not enough ridership to be able to sustain that. And just for kind of a perspective, the medical campus, gets over 400 people a day. So, a large difference there. So just wanted to make sure that everyone got to see that. The next, Jeff, is number 7, the IPD master plan. And we did submit responses to all town staff comments. I don't need to go through those unless someone has specific questions or wants me to. I can certainly go through them, but just wanted to let everyone know that we did address all town staff comments to that date and submitted all the documents for that. So this was the IPD update. So it took the original plan that was from 2014, 2015, and we just kind of modified it just to show that the remaining area is just what it was before. The only real difference is right around the laser lab. So that's the only part of that global master plan that really had any changes. And then you can go to the number 8, the Lle Development Plan, where we can kind of zoom in and talk about it a little more closely. So this gives it kind of a blow up side by side. So on the right shows the original IPD approval plan, and then our plan is on the left. So kind of the darker orange is the current building addition, which we're seeking approval for. The lighter orange is what we estimate or our potential development that we're anticipating in the future. Just a little bit to the south. There's one of the things that I did add to this plan is there's kind of a purple hatch there. That's just kind of into that orange building into the south. That is the area of a previous fill from when they constructed the laser lab. So that area, there's no woods in that area. It's been filled. So that area has a less natural habitat than I guess that area to the south along the neighboring properties where it's much more mature trees and things like that. So just want to say that the conservation easement that we have proposed there to the south is where the mature trees are, where there's a lot more beneficial habitat worth protecting in that area. One of the things I talked about last meeting, but we didn't have it on the plans yet, was just south of the vernal pool, we have added the proposed additional wetland mitigation area that is 0.17 acres of additional wetlands that will be just south of that vernal pool to really enhance that area. And we will be enhancing that the remaining wetlands as well to get rid of the Phragmites and make that area better. We provided a comparison table in the bottom right that compares previous approved plan to our current plan. And we have our revised plan has about 45,000 square feet less parking, 23,700 square feet less building coverage, 2.34 acres less woodlot disturbance, 3.57 acres more green space, and 3.16 acres of conservation easement that there was not on the original plan. So all those things we're reducing impervious areas, increasing green space, increasing woodlot, condensing, and really directing our development to one core area instead of spreading it all out, maintaining habitat corridors better. So this plan is just really I would say a very good movement in the right direction from what was previously approved as far as it is in relation to the environment and things like that. And just to reiterate some of the, where we've been, that we started out with having, a parking lot where we're now proposing wetland mitigation. We had a 100-car parking lot in that wood lot that we had, after meeting with this board and the conservation board, that we relocated those areas to existing parking areas and see, where we can just fill in some parking that would have way less woodlot and green space disturbance. So each step of the way, we've been making tweaks. We've heard you, modifications to really enhance this plan to make it a much better design. So I definitely appreciate all that. And to answer David Fader's comment about protection. So the vernal pool area is protected as part of the IPD approval. And any wetlands in the town of Brighton are protected. That no one can come in and disturb wetlands in the town of Brighton without this board's approval. So it's protected by code and this board, frankly, so that nothing can happen in those areas without this board approving it. I think that sums up, much shorter today, but I think that sums up my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. David, just for clarity, I took a trip out here and I had focused previously on the east side near the vernal pool area and not as much on the back side, and a little surprised that I didn't realize how much fill was back there. So you have highlighted the area that is fill, and the depth of that, the height of that compared to the parking lot that's currently exists, quite a difference in there in elevation. So has this plan anticipated the grading you're going to have to do when you get to future phases with regard to how much land you're able to leave behind or leave undeveloped?
Yeah, so that's why there is quite a gap in between where we have our proposed parking and where that conservation easement is. That a lot of that is required for grading. That parking lot's going to be 10 feet, maybe 15 feet below that conservation easement. So that parking lot will be completely, low, that any of those neighbors to the south will not be able to see. I mean, if there wasn't trees, they wouldn't be able to see the parking lot because it'll be down low, 10 feet below the earth there. So that's why we do need that area in between that parking and that conservation easement to do that grading to make up that slope difference in elevation.
And we had access to these plans ahead of the meeting, but could you just confirm the anticipated distance of the conservation easement from either from the property line north toward the building or from the from the parking lot south to the property line?
So from the southern property line, we're doing a 150-foot conservation easement that's a complete no-fly zone, no disturbance, nothing whatsoever. And then we also proposed on top of that 150 feet, an additional 25 feet that would remain green space, but it would allow us to do some grading for that slope, to do any grading work in there if we had to put any utilities or things like that, but it would remain green, that we could not put any asphalt or buildings or anything like that in that area. So that provides an additional buffer to the main conservation easement. And so in total, it's 175 feet of conservation area from that southern property line.
That's part of how you came up with the acreage difference between the master plan proposed area and your proposed area.
Correct.
David, what utilities would be in the conservation easement?
So we don't know. The only thing that could possibly be in that would possibly be some stormwater that there might be from the parking lot south there might be bioretention areas or things like that that would have stormwater, stormwater pipes and catch basins that could be associated with that. Obviously, this is still concept. It's not fully designed, but just, kind of thinking ahead of what could be there. But it would not be in that core, and nothing would be in that core 150 feet.
Because we have 100-foot restriction on it now, right?
Yep.
So you're saying you're going to give another 50-foot of protection in addition to the 100 feet we already have?
Yep.
And then so that's going to be a conservation easement. And what's this additional 25 feet?
So the 25 feet would be, like an additional green space area that would not be, no impervious surface would be allowed in there. So no parking lots, no buildings, things like that. So maintain green space.
David, this is Ken Gordon, town attorney. So the extra 25-foot strip would also be under the conservation easement, just subject to different criteria under that conservation easement?
Yes, that's the plan.
Yeah.
And I read the description as saying that there would be grading, underground utilities, and something that I was not familiar with what you meant, green infrastructure. I don't know, what are you defining as green infrastructure? Solar panels?
No, sorry. So green infrastructure is a stormwater term. The green infrastructure is stormwater infrastructure that is more beneficial. So like rain gardens, bioretention areas, infiltration areas. Green infrastructure is not ponds. So green infrastructure is more nature friendly types of stormwater design.
It would be of benefit for me, and I think for the planning board and staff for that matter, to see the language of the proposed conservation easement so we could understand it as best as possible.
Absolutely, that we can provide that.
I have a question for you. Just out of curiosity, I'm looking to the east side of the development. I'm working sort of from north to south. I'm starting at the vernal pool.
Yep.
Then there's your proposed wetlands.
Yes.
And then it looks like there's an area there you have for stormwater management.
Correct.
Which I imagine will be a pond or maybe just sheet flow into some green area or something like that. But my question is, why not extend the non-pervious easement north through that area? And then everybody's concerned about that pond and wetland would be sort of, alleviated.
So there's additional, utilities that might have to go through there. There could be, a lot more as far as utility development that would happen in there. And if you went with this north-south easement, you're also kind of creating a forever barrier or forever wall there. If for whatever reason in the future, that if you wanted some tie from the imaging building or something like that, that would be completely blocked. If, for whatever reason, it's creating this forever wall that, there could be something that we, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, that we're not thinking of that might go in there or might need to traverse through there.
Okay, so then that's what I'm trying to clarify. So this area here that you say is stormwater management, that really could be future development.
Not without your approval. I mean, it could. This is Jared. Absolutely. It's
Gerald
possible.
Lusk.
Okay.
It's Gerald Lusk. Holly.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep. That there's nothing other than the planning board's consent and the regulations of the IPD that require this board to approve. I mean, it's no less protection than you have now. And so to come in and change that plan, we'd have to get, I doubt very much, knowing Brighton the way that I am, and of course, 50 or 100 years ago, as David, or years in the future, as David indicated, I can't imagine there'd be less emphasis on preservation of wetlands and et cetera. But again, it's so close to the building, and putting property that close to the building in a conservation easement it puts us in a difficult position, not knowing what's going to happen in the future and what needs there will be in the future for that.
But Jared, this area was always proposed not to be developed in the future. And one of the concerns that we had, it seems that the area that is being shown now is larger and has expanded since the area that we were shown the last time. And part of our concern is, how is this going to be built without disturbing that area? I mean, this is jammed up right next to this area. What is the buffer from it? How is it not going to be impacted by future development? That is not clear. I'm also worried about the future building that could go there and the need for aerial support. Was that looked at? Because that would increase the potential disturbance of that area, which is how this whole thing started. This whole thing started about this area not being disturbed and about it being protected. And I think we're still talking about that this is an ongoing issue. We are looking for this area to be protected. I did talk to you, David, and asked you and offered a suggestion of putting it under a conservation easement. If that is not acceptable to you, then David, what are you proposing? Because right now you're not proposing anything.
Ramsey, we're proposing that the planning board approve the site plan with this area unprotected, or excuse me, with this area protected and undisturbed. And obviously, if we want to disturb it in the future, I assume we're going to have a pretty good reason, hypothetically, to do that. So
I have to tell you, though, Jared, the problem with this project was that it was never identified by this project team to very, very late. The reason we want to identify it so that we don't have plans go so far down the road that there's no point of return. And that it's if everyone looks at any of the records, the easement pops up and they're fully aware of the restrictions on this property so that we don't have to go through something like this again.
I mean, obviously, the conditions of the approval would be in the record. Again, I'm not sure I'm following you, Ramsey, what you're saying. And again, I'm not trying to be difficult. When you say it wasn't known to the, I don't know what you're referencing when you say the word get.
We found out about this much later when I asked, had everyone looked at the IPD regulations and went through all the seeker? I was told yes. It wasn't until much later in the process when we started to compare the maps that we realized that this wetland area was being proposed to be disturbed by this project. And we were never told any of this. I don't think the project team either knew it, didn't know it, or didn't want to tell us. I don't want to go back on that conversation again. But originally, Jared, it was your firm that handled this case, if I remember right. And one of the issues was that I wanted this area under conservation easement. You said that, and my understanding at the time, there was an agreement. No, we won't develop this area. This area is not going to be, we put it in the EIS, we also put it in the finding statement. But yet again, here we are disturbing this area. And that's why I was just recommending the conservation easement, because eventually we're going to have to determine if this is a supplemental EIS or not. And it's going to be based on what you submit to us, because we can't do a conditional neg deck.
Ramsey, you're saying a lot of compound statements, so I don't know really how to respond specific to that. I wasn't part of the original conversation, so I can't speak to that. But when you say,
your firm was, I think, right?
I understand that. Ashley's, I haven't talked to Ashley. She's out on maternity leave, so I can't, again, speak to that specific conversation. Maybe David can add a little color here.
The vernal pool, as I mentioned before, the vernal pool is protected as part of the IPD approval. That's the regulations for this development area. Wetlands in the town of Brighton are protected. That no disturbance. What was that?
How are they protected?
No disturbance can happen to any wetlands without the town of Brighton approving it.
We have wetland EPODs, don't we, Ramsey?
No, we do not.
What were we reviewing?
It's under the environmental review that these areas become out to say that they need extra protection. And we did it through the environmental review for this project. We do not have wetland EPODs.
What did we review Jewish Senior Life fill permit under?
Federal,
Why would we review federal?
because they were excavating and clearing land, and it came under our site plan regulations.
And how would
Let's
that
get-
differ-
let's-
how does that differ from this once it's established as a wetland?
Because we established it under the secret regulations and the finding statement for this project. And if you read the finding statement and the documents, it was the intention of putting it, increased restrictions on some of these areas to further protect them beyond what the federal or state governments could do.
So I think if I could just bring us back to where we are in this public hearing. I think the question posed by Ramsey was, what is being offered to the town to assure the protection of this area? And what I'm hearing, and I'm just looking for confirmation from you, Jared, or from you, David, is just like the IPD and the findings that said that this area, the original area, I should say, was going to be a no-build area and would be subject, of course, to further development only with the approval of the planning board or the town board. Now you're saying, well, we're going to change that area. We are going to build in those no-build areas. We're moving them now, and we're giving you the same hollow promise we gave you last time, and that should be good enough. I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So we're filling 0.5 acres as part of this project, getting town approval and providing mitigation for that. We're doing wetland enhancement. We're providing 0.17 acres of new wetlands. We're providing 3.16 acres of conservation easement. This is all part of the mitigation for that disturbance.
Let me see if I can explain this a different way. And I 2 meetings back, you had a woman on your team who was here, and she was talking, and she seemed to understand this concept. The thing is about this area, if you look at it from a environmental viewpoint, if it's totally isolated, it doesn't provide any value. And if this gets, so if you turn in that stormwater management, you see, oh no, maybe one day that'll be a building, then we're back to having a pool in some wetlands completely surrounded by development, which sort of defeats its purpose, which was why we said that we thought that area would not be developed. So I think the question is here, and I said this another time too, he seemed to kind of go in circles here. I said, we should either acknowledge that, no, we're not going to try to maintain that vernal pool as an environmental feature. It's just not possible because we're planning on building around it. And then, decide where to go from there. Or if you do want to maintain it as an environmental feature, then it needs to have some sort of, as we said, what was it? Wildlife corridor, that was the term, something like that, which isn't on this one, but would be with a green, non-impervious easement. And I don't know how these things go legally or what you put in documents or stuff, but I don't think anybody cares if you put utilities back and forth through there, just so eventually it's sort of it's vegetated and it's not impervious was kind of the important thing. So I think.
Yeah, go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
So I think from my perspective, that's kind of the concern. And I had thought, just we'll put a pond somewhere else. The only problem is I look at this, I think the land of the conservation easement is so high that you'd never get a pond in there that held water. So the question is, do you really need the pond or not, or whatever? But I think we're back to where we're going to keep it, but it's going to be inside the development.
We're gonna keep the pond, you mean? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you're gonna keep the vernal pool, you're gonna keep the proposed wetlands, but they're gonna be inside your development instead of adjacent to any of the
Well-
areas that we had hoped to have them adjacent to.
Well, look, we've got the whole corridor that comes down and it's like the shape of a reverse L, I guess. You know, obviously, I can't scroll down on this photo or on this plan, but into the in the conservation area, we were intentional in providing this full corridor instead of having the bill. I mean, we've got to go back to what's approved.
What full corridor? I don't see the L part.
Well, you've got the, I'm sorry, I'm moving the mouse on my own screen. That's not
Yeah.
to help. The
I did
conservation-
that too.
You've got the conservation easement and then connected to the area around the vernal pool and the proposed wetlands. I mean, that's a whole corridor that had buildings and a parking garage in that area before. I mean, it is
Exactly. So you're saying the same thing as me, that area going from south to north is an L. It's like a backwards L.
Right.
The L is not, it's reversed from how you put it on paper. Is
Right.
that correct?
That's correct. So we have provided.
Yeah, so I'm saying the same thing. So if that's there and your intention is that that's what you're giving us, then why isn't under it? Why don't you just throw it underneath an impervious conservation easement?
Because it's not it's not necessary in terms of the preservation of it, because if you look at the IPD regulations, any change to the current plan requires approval. And that was what we discussed, and we can't disturb it. So again, asking us to provide a conservation easement over the area that's already protected is to us, it isn't necessary, and it prohibits any potential future use without going out with the whole rigmarole of conservation. We have no plans. But again, it's connected. It's right next to the building. You have no idea what could happen in this area in the future. So we've made the conscious decision that we're happy to have, as I think David called it, the no-fly zone to the south. That I guess the no impervious surface conservation easement for the additional 50 feet, recognizing. And again, you have under the 203-144 of the IPD that says any changes need to be approved by the town board and the planning board in the future. I mean, I just don't understand why we don't.
I can explain, and I'm going to paraphrase Ken here. So what you're saying is that area is fully protected. We have nothing to worry about, but you're not going to officially protect it because you don't want to lose the ability to go in and do stuff to it in the future. So really you're saying that we're protecting it until we decide we don't want it protected anymore.
No, that's not we decide. That's when the town board, the planning board, and us decide something in the future warrants any change to that area. Now, it's
So,
not just.
Chair, can I ask you a question? Then we could say no to this right now. I guess, board, we could say no to this right now. We don't have to allow them to do this. Is that what you're saying? We have a choice to allow you or not to allow you? Is that right, Jared?
I'm not sure I understand your
No,
question.
right now, your building that you're proposing is impacting this area. You just said this board has the right to tell you not to impact that area and that you have to stay out of it. Is that right?
No, don't you have site plan review authority? Isn't that what you have to do? And you can, of course, you can deny you have the.
No, under the agreement, under our incentive zoning and site plan agreement. Is that true? You just said we could. Is that what you're asking the board to do? Because maybe that's what we should do. I don't know.
I'm not sure that I fully can answer that question based on what you're saying.
No, you're saying that this area is protected by the town, right? And we can do that. So so what I'm saying to the board, the other option is don't let them do this. Don't let them disturb that area.
I can answer that.
I think that's probably, maybe that's the other alternative. We could just deny the application, do a supplemental. I don't know.
I mean, of course, the planning board is not required to approve a site plan that is coming in to modify something that was previously approved by the town board as part of this IPD, and to allow the university to build in what was supposed to always be a no-build area. There's no obligation of the planning board to give approval to this. But having said that, I mean, I think we've all recognized that this is a valuable project that I believe that I know the university and I believe the town would like to see go forward. And we got to figure out how we do that. And what I'm hearing is that at least one planning board member, David Fader, is uncomfortable with what the university has proposed here because it allows for some future university officials, none of these here. I take you all at your word that you want to see this area preserved, but some future university officials to potentially come back to some future planning board and build in this area. But if we all agree now and today that this area ought not to be built, that we ought to preserve this vernal pool and this wetland area, then I would join with David's request that the university give some serious consideration to providing a conservation easement, much in the way of the 25 feet that is to the north of what you're proposing now, to make it a green conservation area. You can do utilities, you can do grading, you can do green infrastructure, but otherwise no impervious surfaces, and have that come up along the eastern border of the property up to the vernal pool to protect and connect those areas with the conservation. That's what David certainly is requesting, and that's what I think that would be something.
I was not insisting on that. The thing that bothers me about this is the ambiguity of this. It's like, that's the part that, you know, if they said, you know, I would almost say like, okay, we're going to give you the no impervious area and it will include the wetland and the pond, but then go down where this alleged stormwater facility is and say, no, that's future expansion, and pull the future expansion over and put it in there and just make it clear. No, you know, that's what I want. Not this, like, it's green, but it's not. That's the thing. Because like Ramsey, I don't want to do this again in 10 years.
Or have some future board do it. Right.
And, you know,
and the other point is, I would say, just to kind of flip this around if you want, let's say you did say it's a non-impervious area and you put it in there. They could come back to the board and say, you know what? We have a compelling reason why we think we should allow a road from our parking lot over to the imaging center. Would you be willing to put that in? And Ramsey, am I correct? I mean, we could make a modification, couldn't we, in a future time if we thought it was necessary?
Depends on what's on the land at the time, David.
Well, if you have a conservation easement on there, can't we like undo part of it?
Would be a process. Yes, you could, but it's a process. It's not the easiest thing to do.
And it's probably not the planning board that could do that.
Would be the town board.
Again,
folks, I'd like to hear from some of the other planning board members. This is taken on a tone that I'd like to hear from some others. And please give us the honest assessment of this, of your interpretation of the impacts and the benefit of this particular design over the original proposed master plan. I'm fully in understanding of the positions presented by Ramsey. I am not in full agreement with it, but I'd like to hear from other planning board members, please. Jason, what is your opinion on this?
A couple things. I generally agree that, you know, if you're going to have a vernal pool.
Turn up your volume, please, or get closer. Thank you.
Is this any better?
No.
No. Get to somebody else. Let me call in on my iPad.
No, you're
not that bad. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. Just
right.
yeah. Thank
I'll
you.
talk loud.
Thank you.
Yeah, do that.
This is a vernal pool. It's not just some emergent wetland, right? It's the whole point of a vernal pool is the habitat that it provides, that the wetland to upland connection is important. I agree completely with David. I also am concerned because the whole reason we're here now is because they said they were going to protect something and they're not, and they're impacting it. And I mean, this is setting a precedent for what could happen in the future. If we don't want to go through this again in the future, we need to consider protecting the areas we want protected, because we are here now because they're not doing that. They just being the generic U of R. So I do have some concerns about that, only because, again, the fact that we're here now having this discussion about something that was put in place years ago is, that's not setting a good precedent for what's going to happen in the future, in my opinion. So that is again, it's a vernal pool. I think we do need to consider protecting that connection, because otherwise you're losing the habitat point of it.
All right, so as far as the overall design in the areas impacted, the conservation easements being proposed, you're not making comments on that. Your comments are like David. It's the connection being a wildlife or a green corridor, whatever kind of connection you want to call it, from the conservation area to the vernal pool, and protecting that is your concern.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Julie, do you have some thoughts on this?
Coming in obviously very late into this process and processing all the comments, I think what the last person, who I didn't get his name, pretty much resonates with my position. If this vernal pool and what it's supposed to be doing and maintaining that, the integrity of the intent is important.
And the rest of the project as proposed?
Again, I'm hesitant to make large sweeping comments. I've only been on this for a very short period of time. I've done as much research as I can, but I am not as versed in the history of this project, period.
Okay. All right, thank you. Karen?
I think overall, through the months of discussion on the plan, several of the components have evolved in a way that improves the overall site plan in response to a lot of the board's comments. So it seems that if we could get similar clarity of what the university is willing to propose on this aspect of the conservation easement, and whether it is only in the back or whether there could be some other more clearly defined easement going from north and south, I think that would be really appreciated at this point, to be able to have that clearly defined and presented to the town. So I think we're still missing that component of exactly what is being proposed or could be proposed in light of the comments made this evening.
I have one last comment. You're going to all think I'm schizophrenic, but I'm going to say it anyways. Having heard from Ken of the difficulty of undoing an actual conservation easement up the top of that L, I guess I'm a little less enthusiastic to require that, because I didn't realize it'd be that hard to modify. So I might actually entertain some other way of indicating that the intention here is to leave that green, which I think is maybe what Bill was kind of leaning towards.
Well, yeah, Pam, do you have some thoughts, please?
I came in tonight feeling fairly good about the plan and the revisions that we've seen, feeling pretty happy with it. I appreciate the other board members' comments and concerns for the wetlands. But I do think that I feel fairly happy with the plan that's provided at this point. So.
All right, thank you. John?
Yeah, thanks. I just had to unmute my tablet here. Yeah, going back to the old IPD that showed a whole bunch of separate little buildings sprinkled around, that didn't make a lot of sense. So this master plan makes a lot more sense to have multiple building additions to the original laboratory for laser energetics. Now moving over to that whole vernal pond proposed wetland mitigation area. I agree that it would be great if we could get that to be a more protected zone. And, you know, whether it be part of the conservation area or some other way, but yeah, I agree to, you know, to create that a reverse L of a protected area would be great. Thank you.
All right, who have I missed? Anybody? Any of our board? I've got everybody. Yeah, we do have to look at this in totality. Wetland mitigation is part of it. It was never the only factor in denying or approving a project. But they were, you know, every other agency that regulates wetlands allows for avoidance, minimization, and mitigation. And I don't, you know, if this came under the rule of, you know, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Corps of Engineers would not be asking for any more than what is being provided. However, I do understand the point that, you know, years back, this was said this was going to be left alone. Now, I don't see a property line out here and assume that the U of R owns everything from the laser lab over to imaging center. And if the connection from the conservation area up to the wetlands and vernal pool needs to be somewhere in some shape, so you can make sure that the environmental benefit that will help to maintain the viability of the wetland in the vernal pool, I think we should try to secure that. If it's a matter of someday a sanitary line or a subsurface connection of a storm line or even a water main, you know, cutting across over to something further to the west, that doesn't bother me at all. You know, coming back someday in the future and saying you want to put a big building as part of in that area that's currently either the wetland or even in the area where it's the stormwater management, that's a little bit, you know, outside my comfort zone. But like Jared said, that would require site plan approval. So I guess I'm in the camp of trying to find a way to make sure that you have a green corridor connecting the southern conservation area, you know, not only on this particular piece, but extending, you know, further to the east to help support that wetland. Does it have to be a conservation easement? I know the term certainly, but if there's another way, I'd like to find a way so that we're not coming back and facing this, or the successors to this board are not going through this again. But I do like the site plan. I do like the conservation area. I do like mitigating the amount of fill that's out there. And I like the consolidation of buildings into a single structure. So in totality, I like this site plan. I would ask the attorneys and administration at the university to find a mechanism so we can advance this project and move on and not require a supplemental impact statement. I do not see the need at all for that. And that's just,
The other option is you deny the request. You don't allow them to modify that area is the other alternative. Another way of possibly doing it is go back to the town board and write it in as a regulation of the IPD, which I think would be, I've always thought that was a way. I thought a conservation easement would be the more easier, quicker way of doing it. But that's the other way is we go back to the town board and say, hey, we want to map this area and protect this area. Because right now, we don't even have a map of this area. We don't even know where this area begins or ends and what's to be protected or not.
I don't know what you mean by that, Ramsey. What do you mean we don't have a map?
The map is you have an area. What they were saying last time was that we had an actual surveyed map of the area showing these are the boundaries of the area that are not to be disturbed. We do not have that here. What we have is showing that there's going to be disturbance, but it does not show where that disturbance is going to begin or end. And right now we have buildings going right up to that area. So during their construction, there will be some disturbance from what I can tell. And that's where the mapping is certainly important. And that being tied into some type of restriction would be very helpful for any board in the future.
Okay.
I would think.
Now I understand.
And I was going to add that exact comment that Ramsey made about going back to the town board to amend the IPD regs. That would be the other mechanism that would allow for this area to be protected. And it would still require, obviously, in the future, if it was going to be penetrated or built upon, for town board action to be taken to further amend the IPD down the road to allow for that. So either with a conservation easement or with an amendment to the IPD, you'd be looking at town board action to modify that down the road.
I'm concerned about the conservation easement, Ken, for the public trust issues that, we're all intimately familiar with. So again, I think from a practical perspective, who the hell knows what's going to happen in the future, right? So again, it's so close to the building, et cetera, that's what's concerning. And so I think we can, with an open mind, I don't think anybody here is trying to be sleight of hand or try to do something quick. I just think we're concerned about the permanency of a conservation easement that close to the building, not knowing what could happen in the future, right? And at that point, people will have the choice, again, even in your current regs, any changes to the site plan have to be approved by the planning board. And so this planning.
Right, and I would like to hear, maybe offline, Jared, your thoughts about what other proposals you might have or ideas you might have to provide that level of protection other than, here it is, we're gonna just leave it as it is, because I do hear, I think I've heard most of the planning board members say they'd like to see something more than what is in front of them now. Maybe not a conservation easement, although that is one mechanism, to protect this area and give some assurance that we're not going to be faced in the near or distant future with a proposal to encroach upon this area and build on it by the university. So that's, I'm happy to hear what ideas you have offline. I don't think we're going to take this discussion much further tonight, though.
I would like to just jump in and just say one more thing. Jeff, if you could zoom out to show the full plan on this. Perfect. So just wanted to kind of step back for a second and do a real high level overview of where we're at. We are disturbing 0.05 acres, which is just a little tiny finger of the wetlands, a very low quality wetlands that is because it's overtaken by Phragmites. Because we are disturbing that very small portion, we are enhancing the entire vernal pool, the entire wetland area. We're adding 0.17 acres of more wetland. We're adding over 3 acres of conservation easement. If we did not disturb that 0.05 acres, you would have a low quality vernal pool and wetland. It would not be enhanced. There would not be any additional mitigation. There wouldn't be any conservation easements. because there wouldn't be any mitigation need. And we could have a plan more like on the right. So, but we are disturbing a very small amount, and we are giving quite a bit of benefit to the town, to the environment for that very small disturbance. That's kind of the, put it into a, big picture thinking. Thank you.
David, and I will say, really, only 100 feet of that conservation easement is already protected. So I beg to differ on that, but
still, there's additional conservation easement.
yeah, there's additional conservation easement.
So Ramsey, you're saying that the language of the current plan that protects that 100 feet it protects it sufficiently if you be able to say it's protected, even though there's not a conservation easement on it.
That's right.
Same argument that we're using for, there's no need for a conservation easement if we draft.
It's not the same thing because,
Ramsey,
I'm sorry, what's that?
please allow me to speak without interrupting me.
Okay.
Please. If we draft up the condition, I have thought about the different ways we can do it. If we put together a condition, the very strong conditions of the site plan approval, indicating the planning board's concern for that area, and that there shall be no additional disturbance in this area in the future without some high level of a need, again, that you and I and this board can't predict in the future. It gives us the same protection which you are indicating we already have on the 100 feet below towards the residences along Southland Drive.
Are you done there, Jared?
Yes.
I just want to clarify that the 100 foot is part of the IPD regulations. It's a town regulation, different than what is in the finding statement saying that this area can't be delivered. So there are two different things there.
Right.
That's all I was trying to say before when I interrupted you, which I apologize for.
Section 203-144 says any changes to the plan have to be approved. And so again, in the regulation, it controls that in the future too, for similar regulations. But again, I'm not trying to quibble. I think a conservation easement is overkill given the tools that we have. I've thought about the different ways. Ken, as academic, studious lawyers as we are, I'm happy to discuss with it. I'm unaware of ways to do it other than deed restrictions. Deed restrictions, again, are common in a neighborhood. A deed restriction wouldn't work here, given that it's only one parcel. So again, I think we're trying to work with you. I think we've made great progress in this process. I recall what I thought were helpful and positive comments at the end of last meeting by Chair Price about saying he's heard what the comments were and to go back and talk about conservation easements to the south. I thought we were very responsive to that. I just want to end on a positive note, given that I think this plan's come a long way in response to comments from this board. I do know that Zena at one point had her hand up. I'm not sure if she still would like to talk.
Thank you, Jared. This is Zena Lagonegro for the record at Pastoral Associates. And I just wanted to expand a little bit on what Bill Price was mentioning about, sometimes there may be impacts, but you provide a plan, et cetera. I wanted to point out that in the finding statement, there are two separate statements under the wetland section. And the first one talks about the no-build zone and talks about the wetlands on the campus. It says, where there's no other option but to impact a wetland, the wetland will be enhanced via a proposed mitigation plan, which will be submitted to the DEC and the town for review, approval, and permitting. The approval plan will be part of the final design plan for the project. At the time, the site plan application for each new building, final design of grading, stormwater management, landscaping, et cetera, will incorporate any proposed enhancements to the wetland area at that time. All plans will be subject to the review and approval of the planning board and town staff. And then the second one, the statement right after that, goes into more detail about the vernal pool. And then the final statement regarding the vernal pool is that disturbance of this wetland area will be avoided by future development. So if you think of the vernal pool as being the nucleus of this particular wetland area, that particular part of it is already protected under the finding statement. The upland area, which is the expanded area around the vernal pool, is what is covered under the section that I just read, the first one, which authorizes the planning board and the town staff to make decisions about appropriate mitigation plans for those wetland areas. So there's also another statement in the wetlands section that wetlands change, and that's why it's requested that a new jurisdictional determination is made every 5 years, which we did. This particular little wetland area has been a wetland, hasn't been a wetland, has been jurisdictional, has not been jurisdictional. I think we're doing the best that we can to protect it. David's also stated that we're doing the best that we can to bring it back into a functional wetland, something that provides a great habitat, opportunity for future habitat, and that eliminates some of the invasive species that are currently in there. If we did nothing today, there's a possibility that the invasive species that are in there now would completely overtake the wetland and it would no longer be a wetland.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have some questions about the water line, if we could talk about something different. Maybe if we're done with that.
I have one last thing to say, and it's if you look at the original plan did not provide any wildlife corridors either. So it's not, they didn't actually take anything away in regards to that. It's just we didn't gain a corridor.
And just to make the record complete, since Zena decided to read from the findings, I'll just add in for the record the part that she decided to skip, which included the reference to the vernal pond specifically. Regarding the chorus frogs and vernal ponds, the vernal pond wetland located behind the laser lab was constructed as mitigation to the laser lab expansion project. Refer to the wetland delineation maps included in the SDGEIS Appendix C, Drawing W1 and L wetland. This wetland is a 0.55 plus minus acre marsh specifically provided to provide an enhanced chorus frog habitat documented in this area. Construction of this wetland was required to mitigate the habitat disturbance resulting from the lab project. Disturbance of this wetland area will be avoided by future development, period. I'm sorry that you decided to skip that language, Zena, when you read the rest of it into the record.
Nancy or David, did you have any further points?
I have some questions about the water line
Okay.
distribution, which was part of the finding statement.
This
David,
domestic water surface line, you mean?
yeah, the distribution system.
Okay.
David, we need that mapped on the site plan. Right now, it looks like it's impacting the E-pod. So we need to get that mapped. We need to know where that hot box is going, how big that hot box is going to be, and if it's taking down any trees in the E-pod. What we found in the engineer's report, it's taking down trees from what we can tell.
There is a few trees. It goes through the area that's already been cleared, so not through the mature trees, but there has been some recent plantings there. It will go through that area. It probably will impact a few trees in that area.
Yeah, you need to map that, show what trees are coming down and what the mitigation is going to be for those trees. Also, when you run that line, keep in mind where future buildings may go.
Correct. Yep.
And how you're running that line. I don't know how much look you've gotten into it because I have to evaluate the placement of that line as part of the seeker review.
Okay.
The other thing is you added the sidewalks along the north side of the facility. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what about the south side?
So we did not add sidewalks on the south side. That the south side is the back of house where the loading docks area is that we do not want to encourage any pedestrian traffic to that rear of house or back of house area. That we want to keep all pedestrian traffic to the front where the main entrance is in that area.
I do think that will need to be visit with future development because that bike path comes right out there. If you look at how things are connected, that is something that would need to be looked at with the future development of the site. Because that was something that was supposed to be put in the pedestrian access through the back. What is a part of this that does have to be addressed? Maybe not now. But that was one of the items that had to be done for this project. The last thing I'm going to ask you to do, David, when you look at this, please look at this area that is to be protected and the ability to make sure that it is not going to be threatened in the future, either by the fire road or the development of the project. Because right now it seems to be right next to it. And staff was wondering, how is anything built there without disturbing that area? So if you could take a good look at that to verify that it can be done, would be important.
Ramsey, please tell us which area you're talking. Is this, you're saying the construction of the fire access up by the addition?
Yeah, because we don't know how tall that addition's going to be.
Yeah.
But we got to make sure if it's going to be tall, there's going to be aerial response that may have to come.
Mhm.
You know, I just want to make sure that they're looking forward. Especially since we're going to have something that says, hey, don't disturb this area. Let's make sure we take a hard look at it.
You're saying make sure it's graded out so that you know that you're not.
Yeah, you got it, Bill. Just they take a good hard look at that, I think is needed, would be my advice after all this. That's the last I have of my questions and comments.
All right. Ramsey, at this point, could you just walk through what you see the seeker issues being and seeker process?
So right now, Bill, I am processing the lead agency and coordinated review for the project. We'll be discussing this with the town board because this is not consistent with their finding statement either. I do need lead agency status from them. If we do get lead agency status from them, then the next step is to take the application and do a determination of significance. The determination of significance could be a positive or a negative declaration based on what we have. And that would probably be done at the next planning board meeting. So what we got is what we're going to have to review and make our decision on at that point. At that point, if we do a neg deck, then we have to make sure that the preliminary plan is in compliance with the neg deck and we start moving forward. If we determine that things aren't adequately mitigated by the applicant, we would do a supplemental and go through that process. Or the other thing is that you could just deny the application, say stay out of the area. It's kind of the alternatives that we have here.
And
But that's down the road. You have to see how they respond and what they give us, and hopefully we could just continue moving this project forward.
what do you see seeker being done on? Are we doing seeker on the full build out, or are we doing seeker on the darker orange?
We're doing it on the application, what they've submitted. We don't have a great deal to look at as far as the master plan, except that they did do a tree survey. We know that the area is filled. From what I can tell, where they're wanting to do the construction seems like a good area. Seems like if we want to have development, that's where we would want to have it.
Right.
We're going to be looking at the summary of the completion of the traffic study. So there'll be looking at the water line. There'd be a number of things that we'd be looking at in the seeker process besides just this item of the fertile ponds.
Okay. everybody on our board, clear with where we'll be going with seeker? There's no dumb questions. So if you're not clear on the understanding of environmental review, please feel free to ask.
Bill, we do have to open it up to the public for comment.
Yep. So assuming there's no more questions, David and Jared, Zena, thank you. And everybody on the board, thank you. Appreciate you all giving some input on this and hopefully giving us some direction. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that cares to address this application?
I don't see anybody.
All right.
Bill, I did have one request that would help us if the board would entertain, obviously, once things are worked out, a preliminary / final approval, so that we could submit for that, and that would help us to not lose a month, just so that, it can be a combined approval instead of having to do a preliminary approval, submit for final, and then come back later.
Given where we are right now, I wouldn't feel very comfortable, but Bill, that if the planning board wants to do that, I have the authority under the code, but at this point, I'm not really comfortable with that.
Well, I think it is something we have done in the past, and I would just have to say that, the review by staff and making sure that we would be able to have plans that have been reviewed. They typically are, it's a rigorous review, and you've been through this before, David. We have done it, but I would caution that it is based on the presentation of the materials and the completeness of the application that says, okay, all concerns, environmental, engineering, design wise have been addressed.
Yeah.
So that's a qualified, we'll think it over.
Yeah, David, it locked this is how it's going. So
sorry to be vague about it, but it has been for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Once again, is there anybody in the audience that cares to address this application? All right, thank you. I believe that is the last of our public hearings, and we have a concept review. And let me get the number. That's going to be application 1P NB 122, the application of 1925 South Clinton LLC for concept review of phase 2 to construct 9,200 square feet of retail with a drive-through facility and associated site improvements at 1905 and 1925 South Clinton Avenue. Is there somebody here? I thought I saw Paul's name out there.
I'm here. Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Happy New Year. Nice to see everyone.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Thanks.
So I wanted to just give an overview of the proposal for conceptual review as outlined in the letter of intent dated December 21st. As I think many of the members will recall, we were before this board in October of 21 with phase 2 of site plan approval request for 1925 South Clinton. At that time, we were requesting 2 buildings. We modified that, and the plans that we have submitted, I wanted to walk through kind of step by step, just to give members of the board who may not be familiar with the overall project, and then also go back to where we were in October and what we've done since. So the plan that Jeff has up now is the previously approved preliminary overall site plan for the project that we call 1925 South Clinton. Phase 1 was the doodle bugs on the northeast portion of the property, which is constructed. That was completed in 2020. The remainder of the site included two-story proposed medical office buildings to the west of the property boundary, and then two freestanding retail buildings, one which was a 9,200 square foot mixed use building, and then a freestanding restaurant. So again, this plan that Jeff is showing right now was the preliminary overall approved site plan. The second plan, Jeff, if you go to the next one, should be the plan that we presented for phase 2 back in October. And understanding that there were several concerns, this plan was denied by this board in that October meeting. And the concerns that were raised were one, the amount of disconnection between these buildings and the pedestrian right-of-way along South Clinton, the unknown or the lack of certainty of what users would be in these buildings, and the need for 2 drive-throughs was of concern to this board. Concerns were a focus on cars and a lack of focus on connectivity to the right-of-way, which was part of the master plan for this corridor on South Clinton Ave. You know, I would say that very few positive comments came out of this particular plan, and understanding that, what we did was worked with town staff, with Ramsey and Chairman Price, to set up a few workshops where we did some sketch plan review over a couple of different meetings with staff to try to present some alternatives that would be better for this next phase, would be more in kind with what was envisioned from the planning board and town board for the development. And the next plans would be alternative 1. Jeff, if you can flip to that. So pardon my lack of artistry, but I did these sketches and shared these with the town staff and in the workshop setting, and I'll try to explain what each one was attempting to convey. So in this one we call alternate 1, we eliminated the second 9,200 square foot building. We reverted back to the previously approved preliminary overall site plan for the freestanding restaurant to the south of the proposed building. We also went back to the connection to the property to the south of us and maintained its previously approved connection, just trying to minimize changes from the preliminary overall approval. The building was also width was reduced approximately 30 feet. We took about 2,100 square feet out of that building in alternate 1, and tried to show a way to minimize the amount of the drive-through traffic between the building and the right-of-way. And in doing so, we were able to eliminate approximately 30 feet of the drive-through queue as it worked its way around the building. So this was what we called alternate 1, and next one would be alternate 2. So alternate 2 used that also reduced building size. So we took about 30 feet out of it. So it's about a 7,000 square foot building. Again, the background is the previously approved preliminary overall site plan with the 4,000 square foot freestanding restaurant. We reverted back to the connection to the south, similar to what was previously approved. The drive-through queue here, as you can see, is along the north side of the building, which I don't think anyone was ever really satisfied with. This, however, maintained more similarities to the preliminary overall by trying to avoid having the drive-through between the right-of-way and the building. Concerns with this one are the queue that would likely overlap into the front drive lane, conflicts between the ingress and egress movement during peak hours for the drive-through. With the type of use that we're proposing, as I think everyone knows, we do have a lease with Starbucks. They would be occupying that end cap on the building. We're just very uncomfortable that this was a very satisfactory solution to addressing the drive-through standards under the town code. We think that it would comply with the amount of queue required for a drive-through, but not particularly Starbucks during peak hours. We then went to a third alternative that we wanted to consider. Again, using the preliminary overall background as a basis, we looked at shifting the building to the west approximately 15 feet to give us a little bit more room between the building and the right-of-way so that we could have an ample sidewalk for rear egress from the tenants, to be able to fit the drive-through message board, menu board between the drive-through lane and the building. We switched this to more of an urban streetscape with parallel parking along the curb line, and enhance the pedestrian sidewalk between the parallel parking fronting the building. We added about 5 feet to that to provide an enhanced hardscape, and then also took the drive-through through the parking lot to the south, thereby eliminating a somewhat redundant drive-through entry that would add impervious area. Using this parking lot between the 4,000 square foot building and the proposed 9,200 square foot building, we're able to access the drive-through queue and still provide what we feel is in excess of town code requirement for queue or length required for drive-through, and would meet Starbucks requirements. We, in the workshop, had some comment back and forth between the members that participated, and it was determined that this would be the preferred alternative. Off of this as a basis, we developed a site plan that I believe is dated December 20th, that was submitted as the site plan for conceptual review consideration. So I think, Jeff, the next one would be the hard line or CAD drawing of that alternative sketch. So in this one, if you zoom in a little bit on that 9,200 square foot building, you can see some of the items that I just described. We shifted the building away from the South Clinton Ave right of way. We were able to maintain the separation from the right of way to the drive-through lane. We modified the fence that is parallel to the drive-through queue lane between the right of way and the drive-through queue, as it was suggested that maybe a continuous fence is not required. Landscaping and breaking the fence up, because we don't necessarily want to prevent that activity from the sidewalk to the building, albeit we do want to try to minimize headlight glare and try to provide somewhat of a buffer between the drive-through and the right-of-way. We, as you can see, have the parallel parking spaces fronting along the, what would be the tenant entry side or west side of the building. We also shifted the dumpster enclosure out of the parking area and shifted that to the south side of the building, more in kind with where it was during the preliminary overall approval. And that also came from some conversations as I was going through site plan review with Starbucks. They would like to have out of their rear egress the ability for their partners or their staff to be able to access that dumpster enclosure without having to cross the drive-through or the drive lane in front of the building. We did get a layout from Starbucks. I do know that how their cafe will lay out. I don't think I sent that to this board, but I certainly will share that with town staff. There is going to be access on the east side of the building. It would be a storefront door. It is required for secondary egress. We are proposing that to be clear storefront with a side light. We're going to try to provide as much storefront on that east side to see that activity into the cafe, albeit it would be certainly secondary to the activity that would be on the west side of the building, as that's where their cafe entry will be. They will have a walk-up window on that west side that would also complement their drive-through type access that they're proposing for this cafe. During the review, there was some questions relative to the maneuverability out of this drive-through queue to be able to make left turn or right turns out. I did submit a turning template that shows not only the pedestrian or a standard car being able to make that access, but we also modeled a pickup truck with like a landscape trailer is pretty much what we looked at, is considering what type of vehicle could frequent this drive-through and how could that maneuver out of this this drive-through lane and without causing conflict. And I think that's a separate exhibit, Jeff, that may be next in your deck.
I don't think we received that.
Oh, my apologies. I thought that I sent that. I will send that. I know Ramsey in particular brought that concern up and we modeled that, and I will send that along. But I apologize. I thought I included that in the submission. I guess overall, we tried to, drop back and take under consideration the comments we got during the October review, and certainly the feedback and input we got during the workshop sessions. We have a revised site plan that we're looking for some input on. We would like to try to roll that into an application to meet the February deadline for being back before this board in March. And I'd really welcome any comments from the board to get further input as we look to develop this.
Paul. All right, so I've been a part of some of the conversations. I'd like to see if any other board members have any questions or comments on this. In fact, I'd like every board member to have a say in the modifications that have been made to this application, and so that Paul, his team, have any feedback from us. I'll kind of summarize and go last. Well, I'll randomly pick on David Fader to see if David has any comments or questions first.
I always struggle a little bit with these ones that are a little bit less suburban or urban or whatever. I guess the question is, my understanding's been the sort of the goal all along is when we build these things in central Brighton is that we kind of don't like parking or cars all out by the street in front of the building. And if that's the case, and that is still a goal we have, then I guess I would like the one that had the U in it versus the ones that go around the front, because no matter what you do, you're still going to have a line of cars wrapped around the front of the building. So I think that's the question. Is that something that's acceptable because there's for other benefits, or do we want to go back more like the original plan and have the U? And I can go either way, but I kind of prefer the U, I think.
The when we talked about the U, the thing that it creates is the number of conflicts. Should we have thought about that back in the time when this was preliminarily approved? We didn't know who the tenant was going to be. But I think that the U having 3 access drives, technically row, and the need for cars to cross in front of each other, just the sheer number of conflict points was that we were going to create something that people would say, what the heck were they thinking with that? And then, the idea of minimizing the amount of drive lane that does go between the street and the building was another intent. So I don't want to say any more than that. If
no, that's good, and that's why I said I don't have real strong feelings, because I defer to people like you that have better experience with traffic and stuff. So, it's like I said, I could go either way. You just asked my thought. There wasn't thought off the top of my head without the analysis that you've done.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Can I go next?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I feel very strongly about the U drive-through. I feel like maybe we should have learned from the Starbucks on Monroe that maybe like there's definitely traffic turning radiuses to really look at and queue lengths and whatnot. But I'm really struggling with this parking along the road, and I'm really struggling with, or I guess not parking, but queuing. I'm really struggling with putting up a fence to block this development when I feel like we should be proud of this development and it should be something that's an exciting opportunity for Brighton. And we shouldn't have to put up a fence to try to block it out. I definitely understand the concerns about turning radiuses, but I also think if they can make this work on Mount Hope in that tiny little Starbucks drive-through there, then why can't we make it work here where there's more land available? So I agree with David. I'm not an expert at all of this queuing and turning. I just feel like if they can make it work there, why can't we make it work here? And every time I drive by that one on Monroe, I wish that I had pushed harder to not have those cars sitting along Monroe Avenue. So I appreciate the changes that have been made from last time. I just still really prefer not having the queuing of cars along South Clinton Avenue.
May I jump in? Which is pretty consistent with what has been said. I fully recognize the issues with the U configuration and sympathize with it. But my first reaction is with that. The same thing is that those cars at the southern end and the exposure and just, I guess, the ugliness of the whole thing. And it seems like there would be, Now you said there's no such thing as a stupid question, so this is it though. What on the north part of the building, what prohibits the drive-through going through there or somehow moving away from the Clinton Avenue area? Again, I am a sociologist. I am not an urban planner, so I don't know any of this. But I really do feel that the prior comments about what it looks like, it matters, and it matters to our community. And it's really just, I'm comfortable with that drive-through going on the south border.
The reason, with the drive up lane has to align with the driver's side of the car. And so there's a few examples around town, Wendy's over along Monroe Avenue. I personally don't like and this is just me personally, do not like, and I do not think that Mount Hope works. I do understand that it doesn't put cars in front of the building, but my personal experience is my mother managing to get in an accident back there, but that's not the designer's fault. So Julie, what we do have regulations as to queuing lengths with drive.
And I assume that was the case.
Yeah.
And I just threw that out there, just,
Yeah, the definite, the no-no, that we try to avoid is things like, the Dunkin' Donuts on East Avenue, where, the queuing length on site is not deep enough and cars end up sticking out into the drive lanes on East Avenue. That is, something that our regulations, whether it's a bank, it's a burger joint, or it's a coffee shop, Ramsey and staff have gone to great lengths to make sure that we have sufficient stacking distance to mitigate potential or avoid altogether potential traffic conflicts. So I hope that answers your question, and please always ask. Jason, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, well, one, I appreciate the doing those workshops. I know that's a little extra work, but I think that they're very helpful. And that, I also appreciate the fact that we've gone down from 2 drive-through areas to 1. I think is a nice change from what we saw most recently. I'm kind of with David on this one. It's not great, it's better. My one question about the layout, was any consideration given to taking this building and drive-through and rotating it 90 degrees to the right, so that you're still going to have the queue-in lanes, but you're putting a much smaller queue-in footprint at the front of the street? And I know that messes with the back layout a little bit with the driving lanes and things like that, but that might be one way to at least shift some of that queued traffic off of or out of that sight line from Clinton. But that would be other. I mean, again, I like the fact that it's only 1 now and it's not 2. So that's all I've got.
Paul, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So Jason, are you saying rotate the entire building 90 degrees?
Yeah, rotate, just take that, basically that entire landscape looking polygon and shift it so that the short queue lane, the shorter arm, is on Clinton, and then the longer arm is going, what is that, then east-west? Yeah, east-west. And
Yep.
again, I don't know if that's possible or not with everything else that's going on, but that might be one way to reduce the visual impact of that queuing system for the passerby.
Yeah, we looked at that. part of the concern there is one, Starbucks wants to be on the right of way. They would not want to be on the west side of the building, center to the project. I think that would be a non-starter for them relative to where they would be positioned. The other aspect is the way the site infrastructure lays out and the grading on the site. And then you can imagine the future medical office buildings to the west, the parking winds up getting interrupted significantly for those. And we were unable to kind of balance the needs of those buildings to the west versus these retail buildings, which want to be closer to the South Clinton Ave right away.
Thanks, Paul.
Karen, what are some of your thoughts?
I have the same concern as has already been expressed about the queuing along the South Clinton Avenue frontage and how that looks. My other question is, and I'm partly reacting to the entirety of the site when I say this, and I was not at the original presentation, so you may have covered this already, but are there amenities that are part of this plan that promote pedestrians or bicyclists or other people other than car traffic? Is it possible on a site that has this much activity so close to the road, but are there things like bike racks or EV charging stations or internal to the layout, things that would promote walkability of the site at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. As this was subject of an incentive zoning approval, there are amenities that we are offering offsite, which include amenities partially constructed. Sidewalk, about approximately 1,100 lineal feet of sidewalk was constructed along Elmwood Ave. And then we, in the 2022 construction season, are going to construct approximately equivalent length of sidewalk, another 1,000 lineal feet along South Clinton Ave. Additionally, as you can see in this preliminary overall approval, the extensive network of pedestrian connectivity between the buildings themselves, as well as bike racks would be installed at the different locations. Each of the buildings would have bike racks, outdoor patio areas for outdoor seating. There is no outdoor dining proposed with the Starbucks. It's not envisioned that there would be any service other than convenience for enjoying beverages and products that Starbucks sells outside. We also are showing a patio area on the south side for a anticipated future end cap on the south side of that building.
John Asad.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. And thanks for all the effort that went into coming up with these three alternates. Yeah, I agree that alternate 3 is probably the best you're going to get in consideration of the lengthy queuing that you need for a Starbucks, so you don't get in trouble with it. What I'd like to see is, I agree with Pam, to lose that fence along Clinton Avenue and just have some nice landscaping there, intermittent landscaping to try to soften, minimize the long line of cars that'll be there. That's probably about the best we could get out of this. So anyway, it's a fact of life that you got to have a long queuing line to accommodate those cars. I mean, I've seen all the cars wrapping around the Starbucks at Whole Foods Plaza, and it amazes me to see a dozen cars there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I guess people like their coffee. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Who have I missed? Anybody? Everybody had their say. I guess, the in totality, I guess I have to, I have to think that this becomes the best alternative. Although I agree with trying to keep cars between the street and the building from happening. For whatever reason, I tend to drive down South Clinton Avenue from Elmwood to Westfall more than I do the other direction. So my bias is that direction. And I don't see an awful lot of difference if I'm driving down the road and I see essentially 3 lanes of traffic or 3 lanes of asphalt, on the north side of the building, the entrance drive, entrance and exit main drive, and then the one way in and the one way out. And I don't find that it's not better or worse. It's different. So the U shape is, again, this and the U shape are just different. Neither one, to me, in my mind, offers a substantive benefit. From a how do we feed cars to the drive-through? From another standpoint, some minor things, some things that I guess you would notice this, but you might not. The dumpsters have been moved to a different location. The building is a smaller building. We're trying to get glazing and more interest on the elevation along South Clinton. The front being parallel parking offers more sidewalk space, which gave me heartburn last time, was the minimal depth of the sidewalks. This offers us 2 areas for outdoor seating. So I think overall, what can be, and I don't disagree with anybody on the fencing. And in fact, Paul will probably tell you, I kind of acquiesce on partial fencing, but would be fine with no fencing. So with the goal of trying to, activate the east side of this building toward South Clinton with glass, so that we can see people in the buildings, we can see activity. I think in the Starbucks space, in the retail spaces next to it, certainly helps that elevation. I would love it if our society was not driving cars as much. That's kind of a wishful thinking. That we're not going to walking in bikes as fast as I would like us to be. So, drive-throughs are with us for a while anyway. But the other thing is that this has a shared drive lane with parking on that south side of the building and that open space they've got, rather than having its own parking separated from a dedicated drive lane. Doing a little bit more to reduce some of the asphalt. So I like this. Are there other things that I would like better? Probably, but grading and proximity to intersections and queuing distances and conflict points, everything that you have to ultimately take into consideration, I think this is a good alternative.
And probably worth note is some of the items you brought up, Bill. We are trying to activate that eastern elevation. We did resubmit modified plans to the architectural review to Jeff for review next week with ARB. Some minor items that worth noting here, in lieu of hollow metal doors on the east elevation, we're proposing those would all be storefront doors. We are trying as best we can to get Starbucks to lay out their cafe. We actually gave them about an additional 200 square feet to increase their width so that we could have that rear egress with a side light and true storefront door on the east elevation. The adjacent tenant to them will be a sandwich shop. I'm fairly certain that they will not have the same need for rear egress as Starbucks does, and it would likely be their back of house. But again, in lieu of a hollow metal door, we're proposing storefront doors on that east elevation. We've added some awnings. We've added some additional detailing on that elevation that we plan to review with ARB next week.
Thank you. I should let Ramsey and Ken, do you guys have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I've got a couple sort of macro site issues actually, Paul. And I think we've talked about them before, but it's just a heads up at this point in time. I can see two things potentially stopping this project cold. One, you mentioned the sidewalks that still need to be completed. I think the deadline for those was extended to June 30th. And that has to happen. That's part of the incentive zoning approval. And in order for any thing to continue to be developed on this site, you need to meet those marks. And I think you know that, and I'm just putting it out there as a reminder. And the other one that we've talked about for a while now, back in, I think it's November of 2019, you were before this board and talked about the piles of topsoil that are placed on the property. At the time, there was a map filed, plans filed that indicated that pile, which is roughly, I think, at the southwest corner of this project, was going to be there for 6 months. I've reviewed those meeting minutes from November of 2019. And Ramsey asked some questions about why is it going to take that long to get rid of it, and there was a back and forth about what needed to happen to get rid of that pile, etc. That hasn't happened. That pile is still there. It's been over 2 years. I'm gonna be hard pressed to recommend that this board approve any further site plans until and unless that promise that was made over 2 years ago is fulfilled by the developer, and that pile is spread or taken away, or do whatever you need to do to fulfill that promise that was made back in November of 2019. So I'm just putting that out there. I think now is a good time to talk about that so that that's on my agenda at least, and I'm going to continue to make sure that it's not forgotten by the developer nor by the planning board.
Sure. No, noted, Ken, and we absolutely want to remove that topsoil, as I think I stated in some of the workshops and previous conversations I had with you. We don't need all that topsoil. I am pressing the site contractor to get rid of it. I'm having continual conversations with them. We did have them mobilize out there in December and at least knock down the gravel piles that were produced. And I've been pressing them to do some housekeeping on the site. So your comments noted. I am working with them to find a home for that material. And we don't need it. We don't want it there, and certainly don't want it as we advance the next phase of site plan approval.
Thanks, Paul.
Paul, I just want to know that there was a memo that the planning board got from the fire marshal, and I'll email it to you tomorrow. We just got it late. That talks about the issue of how Starbucks has insufficient storage. And what happens when they have special events, they get so much product that they start storing it in the mechanical rooms, blocking the fire exits or blocking the mechanical equipment, the sprinkler equipment. And it's been an ongoing problem at Starbucks with violations being issued. So I'll send that over to you just as you go design the building, look at what the storage capacity would be.
Yeah,
I'll send that over to you.
Yeah, please send that along. Obviously, there'll be a central mechanical room for the building, which they won't have access to other than, for any type of emergencies that they would have to contact us. Their back of house, I don't really have control over, but if you send me what Chris Roth has generated, I will share that with Starbucks relative to the concerns that are identified.
Yeah, if you could. Thank you.
Oh, I was wondering previously when you said we were going to the next phase, you showed 2 buildings on the site. Is that the intention for the next phase 2 to have those 2 buildings, or just the one you're showing now?
Just the single one. So the modified application would be for phase 2 to include just the 9,200 square foot building. And then I would probably follow up with Ramsey relative to any formal comments you guys issued tonight, for what are we tailoring for that next application? Am I doing a revised preliminary overall, or are we doing a phase 2 preliminary final? So a little guidance I'd like on that.
Paul, maybe we could talk tomorrow.
Sure. Thanks.
Bill, I think you're muted. Bill Price.
Yeah, sorry. I guess I do just want to quickly go back around. I guess if I mentally add this up, I think we don't have consensus, but I want to see if we can get a majority understanding of the direction that the board would like to see this advanced. So I heard enough of the alternative U configuration that I want to go back around and see if I can clear up.
Could we see that map, please, of the U configuration?
Yeah, good idea.
Thank you.
So, yeah, let's, does anybody need kind of more of an understanding? Paul, do you have can you just give us a quick overview of how we discussed conflict points here.
So essentially the concern with this one is 2 things. By shifting the building to the south, you can see where our primary tenant, Starbucks, has minimal amount of parking that would wind up being proximate to their front door. I've basically orphaned a significant amount of the parking field that is opposite this drive lane. So the concern here is opposite Starbucks front entrance. I don't have an ample amount of parking for them. And then the major concern here is, given Starbucks peak operational hours, we certainly foresee that there's going to be conflicts where the egress move out of the drive-through lane could be blocked by queue waiting to get into the drive-through. I know a lot of people may envision that the predominant movement would be from the north to the south into the unsignalized entrance, but actually the signalized entrance is opposite the existing driveway entrance to the plaza across the street. So actually the the access to the plaza or to this development on the south side is going to be the signalized entrance where we envision there will be a significant amount of vehicles trying to navigate to that particular intersection. When we were in the workshop sessions, I think what we were getting feedback, or at least what I was getting feedback on, was the Mount Hope example was not one to try to model. And this is really what that is kind of modeled after, is the Mount Hope location. So as we were preparing the plan to present back here as a preferred alternative, we kind of moved off this one.
All right.
Can I say something else?
Yeah, no, this is what we want you to.
I definitely appreciate that, like, the Mount Hope one isn't perfect. I just really am having a hard time with this, like, let's let the cars win and let's let Starbucks be able to pick what they want. I really feel like we're in charge here. We need to do what's best for our town. And I don't know, maybe at the end of the day, this isn't a huge deal. But like John said, when he drives by Monroe Ave and he sees 10 cars there at, 5 in the afternoon, we only see those 10 cars because we allowed those 10 cars to be along the street. So at the end of the day, isn't it our choice what we make this look like?
Sure, it is. And if I think if you feel strongly that this is a better alternative because you believe the primary concern is seeing cars from your car.
I mean, I don't know. That's what I'm.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't. No, I'm whatever if your opinion is that.
I mean, I don't think any of them are perfect. I'm just saying, I don't like the attitude of it's a car-driven society, so we should just let the cars win. Like, to me, we make our town what we want our town to be by making those decisions. I don't know. But maybe I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, I guess.
If you're happier seeing this option pursued versus the other one.
I mean, I'm happier seeing no drive-through, but I don't think that's a choice. So.
Right. Well, that's, I wish, we were all out on bikes and, going in, electric buses everywhere, but my wish isn't coming true any day soon, unfortunately. So I guess is that, what are we going to, how can we face this situation best we can?
And I guess, Bill, if I could just, kind of higher level what we're seeing relative to developers and this corridor. There's a reason the project has been somewhat stalled. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now. Retail is not as robust as we would hope. There's some other situations at some of the developments that are flanking us along the East Henrietta corridor and what's happened there with surplus inventory of shop space, as well as the medical office compound to the south of us along South Clinton, with a lot of second generation space available, where we're having a hard time attracting the tenants that we want so that this can be vibrant and successful. And not that we're giving in or we're giving up on anything, but having Starbucks is a pretty significant opportunity to jumpstart this development. Across the street, we don't control the restaurant that went vacant. We do not own that, but we do own the rest of the plaza. CVS is closing locations. We're going to be losing them as a tenant. We have plans to backfill that tenant. But all this kind of in the global development world we live in right now is, we're competing for the South Clinton corridor to be something and to be vibrant, and to have a tenant like Starbucks that helps kind of set the standard for what the tenants will be. I think we have to understand that there's a balance between what Starbucks brings for co-tenancy with other future tenants, but also the fact that they are a generator of traffic, and that people in their routines drive predominantly and use the drive-through. So that's what we're trying to balance here.
Can I jump in and backing up something that you mentioned about with this U shape and there's fewer parking spaces? This would actually increase the pressure to drive through having fewer spaces.
It's not that there's fewer parking spaces, there's fewer spaces proximate to Starbucks front door.
Well, that's in essence for Starbucks purposes the same thing. I'm going to go to Starbucks to get a cup of coffee. I don't want to park across the street. I want to park there. So if I can't park there, I'm going to drive through. So this is an argument for having the second one with the non-U shape. And given what you were saying about Starbucks being an attraction, I'm done.
Karen?
So you're essentially asking, do we have thoughts on alternative 2 versus alternative 3?
Yeah.
Right? And I guess my preferred is 3 to 2, based on, even though I made the statement I did about the cars queuing parallel to the road, overall, I just like that alternative better, and I think it probably makes more sense safety wise. So I prefer 3 to 2.
Okay. David Fader, did I bypass you?
You did, but I have nothing to add. You both make convincing arguments, and I can't pick either one.
Okay. All right. All right. And Jason, have you?
No, I was
maintain
fine
your
with alternative 3. I mean, again, I think there are valid points each. I'm fine with 3.
Thank you. And John?
Yeah, I told you before, I prefer alternative 3, and the length of queuing of the cars is unfortunate. The cars along the Clinton Avenue. I think we'll just have to have some nice landscaping there to try to, kind of hide the cars as best we can and still make it, acceptable for pedestrians walking up and down Clinton Avenue. And one thing I don't like about alternate U is that big U is a big waste of space, a very inefficient use of space, in my opinion. And, I can appreciate the fact that it puts those parking aisles directly across from that U to the west of that U, relatively remote from that front door of Starbucks, so people won't be so prone to want to park and walk up. It's less convenient for that. So anyway, I do prefer alternate 3. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Paul, I don't think we do anything else other than that.
No, that's helpful. I appreciate the thought that everyone's giving to this, and I appreciate the time that staff has dedicated over the last couple months to host the workshops. I think I understand, what concerns remain. We absolutely will look to develop this with a landscaped streetscape along the backside of this building. I think that was represented in the preliminary overall plan. We'll modify that so that it is fitting with the placement of the building. And understand the concerns that are raised, but I think just given the way you were able to summarize it, that we feel comfortable that we'd like to advance with alternate 3 or the preferred alternative, and would look forward to being back before this board in March.
Okay. Steve, have we said enough on this? All good?
Think so.
You think
All
so?
right. I know you've had a long night. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate
Yeah,
your
I think
time.
everyone's quiet, so I think that says it all.
I think most
All
people
right.
might be sleeping.
No. We just don't have anything
No,
else
no.
to say. You're good.
All
Paul.
right.
Thanks for your
Ramsey,
effort.
I'll touch base with you
Thanks,
tomorrow.
Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
effort, Paul. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Good
All
night.
right.
Night.
Thank you. All right, we got to keep going. We'll let's go back to the
And we just checked in with Holly. Holly, how you doing?
I'm good to keep going.
You're tough. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Okay.
for checking.
Good. All right, thank you. All right, let's swing back to the beginning, our application 1PO122. This is Ahead Energy and Ionomer, I hope I'm saying that right, Ionomer Innovations as lessee for a conditional use permit at 285 Metro Park. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes, I move to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
A second, Delaney.
Delaney seconds.
Delaney. All right, moved and seconded. Is there any questions or conversation, comments? This has been here. This sounds like this facility, the activities that would be under consideration for the conditional use have been here for quite a while. And Ramsey, to your knowledge, hasn't been any incidents of concern.
No, they're pretty safety conscious is my understanding. Always have been.
Yeah.
We haven't had any problems with them. They've always been very forthcoming.
Yeah. It sounds like
This isn't as intense as the last one.
As the last user.
Yeah, that stuff was getting pretty intense there for a while.
Was it? Okay. Well, the fact that I don't know, I hadn't heard of the firm, but I do know Plug Power that from the Capital District or the Capital Region. I'm familiar with them and some exciting stuff going on. Very exciting.
Yeah, really what they're trying to do is build cells for like industrial equipment, like
Yeah.
buses, trucks, big stuff.
Yeah,
It's really what their focus is. Okay.
that's great.
Can I take, we need a motion in a second.
We did. We got them. So no further discussion. Please call the roll.
This is to close it. Fader,
Yeah.
Aye.
Altman.
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Delaney,
Aye.
Babcock Steiner,
Aye.
Sowski,
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, so this is, the application is for a conditional use permit. Do we have a motion to approve this?
I move that the board adopts a negative declaration prepared by town staff and the board approves the application 1P0122 based on the testimony given, plan submitted in the 19 conditions.
Price will second. Any further conversation? Please call the roll.
Member Ford,
Aye.
Sowski,
Aye.
Babcock Steiner,
Aye.
Delaney,
Aye.
Fader,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Altman.
Aye.
Motion Passes, approved with conditions.
Brings us to application 12PNB1-21. Application to University of Rochester for preliminary site plan approval, an EPOD and preliminary conditional use permit. It does sound, at this point, Ramsey, like this needs to be tabled for lead agency designation and a little more information and discussion on really the best mechanism for protecting this in the future.
Yeah, really, we need additional information to make the determination of significance. Hopefully they will give that to us, but we'll be back next month because we should have lead agency status figured out by then, Bill.
All right.
I move the board tables application 12P NB 121 based on testimony given and plans submitted. The 30 items of additional information outlined in the planning board report are requested to make a determination of significance and to have a complete application.
There's a
Board
motion.
second.
Is there a second? Board second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, Ramsey, please call the roll.
Altman,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Delaney,
Aye.
Babcock, Steiner,
Aye.
Wasowski,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Vader.
Aye.
Application is tabled.
Thank you. We do have two signs, one of which is,
Before we get to the signs, don't we have legislation to review?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry. We have, thank you, Ken. Thank you. We have an advisory report regarding the town's cannabis law. We need to adopt a local law regulating it in the community, saying where it can or cannot be. So this is our draft law that we're proposing. I have attached an advisory report. Would like to forward it to the town board if you have no further concerns with it or comments with it.
Basically, what we're doing is we're taking, the proposed local law takes cannabis use and puts it in as an adult use along with vaping and other tobacco products, so that cannabis is going to be zoned in the same way that we zone the sale of tobacco products and vape and clove cigarettes and whatnot. And also the other part of the local law that really doesn't affect zoning and planning is prohibiting the use of cannabis on town property, just like we prohibit the smoking of any cigarettes on town property.
okay. Ken, just a quick question for you. Back when we were, we heard a concept application for Quickly's. I believe you asked the question about the sale of cigarettes. What was their response to that? Do you recall?
I believe the answer is they typically do sell cigarettes, but they don't sell vapes. And I think that they're going to be, in terms of cannabis sales, subject to this law if we pass it locally. But there's also, even in the state cannabis law, distance regulations relative to sale within a certain feet of schools. So the Monroe Avenue potential Quickly's location is going to have that regulation. The East Avenue one probably wouldn't be subject to that, although I don't think Allen's Creek School is that close.
Yeah, might be, but okay. All right. I just was, I was curious how that might.
Yeah, basically this would put cannabis sales in the same zones, the IG zones.
So it's a permit, becomes a permitted use within the zones that currently allow these other uses.
Correct. Yep, we're allowing it's, and this is just so I'm clear, cannabis establishments are both on sale consumption and retail sale.
Okay, all right. Well, I've managed to read that while sitting here, and I would make a motion to authorize the secretary to submit the advisory report to the town board on behalf of the planning board.
I'll second that.
Babcock Steiner seconds.
Any other discussion from the board? All right, please call the roll, Ramsey.
Ford,
Aye.
Sowski,
Aye.
Delaney,
Aye.
Fader, Altman, Babcock Steiner,
Aye.
Price.
Aye. Okay. Now I assume we can move on
I
to.
think we can do signs. Good grab there, Ken.
do sign.
Hey, Jeffrey, you're on.
So the first sign, 1634, is at 2949 Monroe Avenue. It's for Salon Social. This is the sign.
Is the color actually gradated like that?
It
Or
is, yeah. And I asked them about that particularly because I think it might be hard to see, but that's what they want to go with.
Hard to see. And
Yeah.
And this was approved as submitted?
Yep, it was approved as presented.
It looks like it's saying colon.
I can't read it, but. It's cool.
You have to come to West Brighton and get some pot, and then you can read it.
That's where it's gonna go, okay.
That's where everything bad goes.
No, it looks like it says colon.
Yeah, I can see.
I can kind of see that. Oh.
You know, it's I don't know why that should be all white. I mean, it should be.
Yeah, they're gonna.
From a pure readability standpoint, I get it's their brand.
Yeah, that's.
I
no.
understand that, but
no.
What is it?
That's hard to read.
Is this a hair salon? What is this?
It's kind of it's like a salon space, but they kind of rent out different areas to tenants. I think there's some room for massage and other uses.
It's for colons to socialize with each other.
I don't know if I can go with that.
I don't know.
ARB approved, you know, I'm hesitant to trump another board, you know, they approved it. That's, you know, I respect their expertise, so. But
I feel like we've seen a lot worse.
I'm new, so I haven't.
Oh, yeah, we certainly have.
We've seen
Those ones in West Brighton.
And we have Food City. No one's gonna beat Food City.
wait till you start seeing the pot signs, Pam.
Yeah, we've seen.
All right, let's do it. Let's take a motion on this thing. Do we have a motion maybe? Or?
Approve. I move to approve as recommended.
Member Price moves.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Babcock
Oh, go
Steiner
ahead, Jeff.
seconds.
You're doing this. I'm sorry.
Babcock Steiner seconds.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Altman.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Delaney.
Aye.
Babcock Steiner.
Aye.
Osowski.
Aye.
Bader.
Aye.
It is moved and approved as recommended.
Okay, what else you got?
This one is signed 1635. It's a monument sign that's going next to the Whole Foods Plaza. It was tabled by the ARB because there's a lot of information that they didn't provide on the sign and lighting and materials.
Yeah, it looks like they got 7 or 8 items there, so.
Yeah.
All right, do we need a motion to table as well?
I'll move the table.
All right.
Second,
Vader and
Second.
Price seconds.
Yeah.
All right, Altman,
Aye.
Price,
aye.
Vader,
Aye.
Delaney,
Aye.
Babcock Steiner,
Aye.
Wasowski,
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
It is tabled with ARB's conditions.
Jeff, who gave the motion? Who seconded? I'm sorry.
I did the motion.
And Bill Price seconded.
Oh, I had it backwards. Okay.
Ken, do I need a permit to sell munchies from my bicycle?
Yes,
Yeah.
you do. You need a
Right.
solicitation.
Permits for
No,
anything
wait.
you do.
You know what you need, David? You need a peddler's permit.
Oh,
Oh,
Very good.
Oh, very good.
That is a good
Very
one.
good.
I like
Well,
that.
well practiced in dad jokes.
All right, thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thanks. Good night, everyone.
Everyone,
Good night.
thank you. Appreciate everyone's effort. Time.
You're welcome. Good night. See you next month.
Brendan, thank you. Jeff, thank
yeah,
you.
thanks.
Holly, thank you.
Have a great night, guys.
We'll see you.
See ya.